Okay, welcome. Today we're going to be going over the most controversial units in Dokkan history. Controversial units have existed in Dokkan throughout all of time. Where there is Dokkan, there is controversy after all. We'll be going over 10 such times that cards have left the Dokkan community in shambles. Coming in at the number 10 spot, we have Physical Kefla and STR Rose. Now, the legend of the 300 stones circulates Dokkan's lore like an ominous figure, always within the back recesses of players' minds. It is probably the most controversial circumstances in this game's history, which lends them a spot at number 10 on this list. The reason they aren't higher on this list is because it doesn't really have much to do with the units themselves, but rather super controversial circumstances surrounding the units. What happened was that the update 3.8.0 caused a quote-unquote visual glitch, so that when players clicked on the Kefla banner, or the newest Dokkan Fest banner up at the time, Physical Super Vegito, players were unable to see certain units on the banner who should have been on it. For example, imagine clicking on a banner unit scouter to see what units were featured on the banner, but while you go through the featured units, you notice that certain units are missing. And then you go to one of your friends, and they're missing different units than you're missing on the banner. Immediately, people thought that Dokkan had accidentally leaked the real rates as they were hiding certain units, making certain units unpullable for players. Players were outraged. They thought they were being scammed after all. It didn't help matters that players were also coming out saying that they had spent huge amounts of Dragon Stones on the banner just to not summon the unit that they wanted. Players were outraged. Major Japanese news outlets were even writing articles on the debacle. In response to this, Dokkan pulled down all Dragonstone banners in the game. Sometime later, they released an official statement regarding the details of the issue, citing that the error was a result of a visual bug in the system, even revealing parts of the game's code itself. On Wednesday, November 15th, 2017, players logged on to all stones that they had used on the banners while they were up after the 3.80 update, until the emergency maintenance refunded all stones used on the banner, along with 300 extra stones in compensation, and their banners being all back up, of course. This is a situation that lives in infamy in global players' minds and caused a major rift in the community, causing global players to believe that JP got superior treatment because of this debacle. About a month later, on December 28, 2017, STR Rose's banner incorrectly displayed Tech Super Saiyan 3 Broly in his Dokkan Awakened art instead of his SSR art on the banner. This is illegal in Japan and led to refunds during the time that the incorrect art was displayed on the banner. It's incredible to believe that JP managed to get 2 full stone refunds in a mere 6 weeks. That's the number 10 spot though. Moving on to number 9. Now coming in at number 9, we have Physical Omega Shenron and Tech Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. The reason that these two units get the nod over the 300 stone fiasco is simply because this was an actual major shaft. With the 300 stones, it never happened on global, so you're hard pressed to say that you were actually shafted out of 300 stones. However, global players definitely got bent over the kitchen table and pounded in this situation. So what happened, you asked? They dropped on Global Dokkan August 3rd of 2017 without leader skills. Yup, their leader skills literally said to be released. This was because while JP had finished dropping all of the 120% leader meta banners, Global had not. Global Dokkan obviously didn't want to kill their sales for those banners, so Omega and Gogeta got the short end of the stick, or well, global players did. To be fair, I can kind of understand their reasoning. 150% was a big boost from the 120% meta at the time, and Omega and Gogeta's leader skills would heavily power creep the 120% meta leads. Regardless, to be released will live on in Dokkan infamy as one of the funniest things of all times, and one of the most unfortunate. Now coming in at number 8, we have LR Tech Gogeta. Now, the main reason Tech Gogeta is so controversial is because of another unit, STR LR Vegito. The main controversy revolved around their active skill conditions. Tech Gogeta's can be activated on the 4th turn when HP is 70% or more, while as LR STR Vegito's was 4th turn 77% HP or less. You had people on STR Vegito's side saying that you could pop his active skill whenever you wanted, and you had people on Tech Gogeta's side saying, oh, but you can just pop an item and transform whenever you want. They were extremely similar in their base forms, with Goku and Vegeta being the base forms. But once they transformed, it was a different story. They were very different. They both basically full healed you, and while Vegito had counters, Gogeta had guaranteed crits, well, pseudo-guaranteed crits, and guaranteed super effective against all types. They both had the Scouter ability, but Gogeta's was only for 5 turns, whereas LRSTR Vegito's was for 10 turns. However, Gogeta had damage reduction, which allowed him to be a lot tankier than Vegito was, especially going into the harder content metas with the release of the Ultimate Red Zone. It just sparked a super controversial, very extended period worth of controversy between Team Gogeta and Team Vegeta. Did you want the big damage of Vegito, but a pretty much glass cannon, or did you want the semi-defensively capable Tech Gogeta with a much worse transformation condition? I mean, it's mainly really a result of Tech Gogeta's pretty bad restriction to transform, but then you just had Vegito, who just every single time he got hit, he was taking back shots. It's just crazy. But it doesn't even matter now, because STR Vegito stomps after his EZA. Coming in at the number 7 spot, you have No One Can Beat Me When I'm Super 17, LR Super 17. Now, what hasn't been said about this unit, man? It's insane. His super attack effects are fodder. They do basically nothing for you. He, for some reason, has Target Goku in his passive skill when he doesn't lead Target Goku, and he has GT Bosses in his leader skill, implying that he would be, you know, a GT Bosses leader, or work well with GT Bosses, but he doesn't because he doesn't have Big Bad Bosses or any of the relevant links with GT Bosses. Curious. It's almost like he's got terrible design. His horrible design doesn't stop there, though. No, it sure doesn't. He's got reduces damage received by 17% damage reduction for 3 turns after the turn in which an attack was received. Now, what this means is that after he gets hit on a turn, he gets the damage reduction the turn after or the subsequent turn. This is LR Evolution Blue Vegeta pre-EZA's damage reduction design gaff on heroin. It is so bad. This literally activates for only 1 turn the next time he comes around. That's the only time he gets the 17% damage reduction, because the first turn this activates is the next turn, which he's not on that turn. Then he's going to come back and you will have the 17% damage reduction, but then the next turn is the 3rd turn, and then you have to reactivate it all over again, basically making the fact that this lasts for 3 turns completely counterintuitive. Then you have the just horrible, terrible, high chance of Ki +1 with each attack received. Again, I've said this before, but LR Full Power Jiren came out damn near a whole year before this guy, and he had guaranteed Ki with each attack received. Pure, utter stupidity. And it's why extreme units have been so far behind the 8 ball for so goddamn long, because of horrible units like this, and horrible villains or weirdly designed villains that they're releasing to this day. Don't even get me started on his active skill, which is 7 hits, but it lowers attack and defense, but there's literally not that many fights when he came out that you could take advantage of this debuff with. He's just really stupid. Really bad. And I could sit here and probably make a 10-minute video on why LR Super 17 is one of the worst design units in this game's history, but that is not the point of this video. That's LR Super 17, who's coming in at the number 7 spot. I'm making this part short because, God. Coming in at number 6, you have STR Blue Kaioken Goku. Now, the real reason he was so controversial is because so many people either overrated him or underestimated him when he was released. There were people arguing that this man was better than STR Cooler, people arguing him over Tech Ultimate Gohan, and then you have the opposite end of the spectrum where there were people saying he wasn't even a top 10 TUR. Now, the main thing with Blue Kaioken Goku is that he does a lot of damage. His defense is horrendously bad. If he so much as gets touched, you're basically getting pinned and railed. I mean, purely ramrodded. But his super attacks did pretty decent damage, and then he had his Spirit Bomb, which once you stacked it up, did a lot of damage. He was also a hype unit coming out as a global first for Christmas of 2019, and was all around pretty much thought to be a pretty fun unit. And I mean, stacking him up throughout an entire event and then dropping his active skill in the final phase is one of the most satisfying things in the game. But then there were people who were arguing him as being really good way after his prime. I mean, these people were defending this man like the Soviets defended Stalingrad. It was insane. With a pretty good leader skill for the time and great animations, it's really not all that surprising why he was a fan favorite. But with his Easy A now being out for the past year or so, he's regained some of his former luster and is still a pretty decent unit to this day. But that's Blue Kaioken Goku. He takes the number 6 spot. Moving on to number 5. Coming in at number 5, you got the GOAT, Tech Ultimate Gohan, a unit who was downplayed into oblivion for so long. A unit that got so much unnecessary hate. Easily one of the biggest mistakes that Dokkan has released in this game's history, that they probably definitely regret releasing, or at least making so good. Simply put, greatly stacking plus guard was way too strong for the period that he released in. I mean, he's still kind of nichely relevant even today. I mean, is this unit a top 5 most valuable pull in history? I mean, probably. And you know, you had the typical arguments against him. Oh, his leader skill wasn't as good as STR Coolers. Oh, he didn't support like STR Cooler. Oh, he didn't do damage like STR Cooler. Oh, his links were way worse than STR Coolers. But it simply just didn't matter because he was invincible. I mean, he's I've seen enough. There was like a whole year where a TUR would release and it's just like, okay, I've seen enough. Tech Ultimate Gohan's better. It doesn't matter. He really just was super duper busted when he came out, and he dominated this game's meta landscape for so long. Don't forget, right after this unit released, the Link Level Up update basically added another gear for this unit to dominate for a much longer time, making the Saiyan lineage one of the premium key links in the game. He also led the Hybrid Saiyan team, which was like the ultimate hurdle tank team, where it's slow and steady wins the race. Not to mention other heavily buffed links like Cold Judgment and All in the Family, buffing his defense massively. And you know, you're gonna get the people who say, oh my god, turn 1 100k defense with guard is just not good enough. I mean, people said this at the time, but if you use the unit, you could clearly see that that was a flawed argument. He was more than good enough. He wasn't only good in short events, and he wasn't only good in long events. He was great in both. The main one flaw you could have is that his transformation makes him lose Saiyan lineage in favor of shocking speed, and unit switching key links mid-fight is not ideal. That aside though, he was basically a perfect unit for the time. We're in for a treat with his Easy A potentially. With AGL Bardock recently getting his Easy A announced, Tech Ultimate Gohan is only a matter of time to get his Easy A. I can't wait. But that's Tech Ultimate Gohan. And at number 4, you have LR Namek Goku. Releasing for the worldwide download celebration of 2021, LR Namek Goku was great on release. He was a top 3 unit in the game. He led a really good team. He had decent super attack effects. He stacked defense. That made him pretty decent. He did pretty good damage, had an awesome active skill, great animations. There wasn't really many flaws with him. However, as time moved on, he very quickly became one of the most controversial units in the game's history. At first, he was often compared with his compatriots LR AGL UI Goku and LR AGL Full Power Frieza, with many arguing that Namek Goku is relative to those units and was in contention to be the best unit in the game, which is certainly true. But as time moved on and harder content released, like Red Zone, which would release with the 7th year anniversary, it was quickly revealed that he simply could not stack his defense fast enough. He was too weak turn 1, and it would ultimately end up with him getting annihilated by enemy attacks. You couldn't put him in slot 1 because he was way too weak, but if you put him in slot 2, his additionals were R and G. While he was still a decent unit, there's no way you could have argued him as high as how some people were rating him. He was overrated, but Namek Goku's staunchest defenders heavily disagreed with that, stating that he would do well in the new hard content. You had people saying, just stack, it's so easy, when it really was not that easy. The most important turns in fights, especially during the time period that Namek Goku was in his quote-unquote prime, were the first couple turns, which he was very weak. It's often said that God gives his toughest battles to his toughest soldiers, and Namek Goku's soldiers were definitely the toughest around. But in all reality, Namek Goku was great, but power creep led one thing to another, and he fell off. Units do that all the time. It is what it is. It do be what it do be. That's dynamic Goku though. Now at number 3 we have AGL Super Vegito. Now I personally was not playing when AGL Super Vegito came out, so this is just where I would project his placement to be, as I think the 2 units in front of him were more controversial on release. What made AGL Super Vegito so controversial was him versus STR Gogeta, who was the first anniversary headliner. You had people arguing for STR Gogeta, oh, he's super effective against all types, and he can't be slowed down by type disadvantage, and he does good damage. And then you had people in the AGL Super Vegito train, where he did counters and did a lot of damage to enemies, and he couldn't easily be killed because he had 80% damage reduction against those normals. And you had some backlash with people saying STR Gogeta's leader skill was so much better because he led all types, but it would quickly be revealed that the percentages were just a lot better than the flat buffs, because STR Gogeta's leader skill only gave 3,000 to attack, with Dokkan clearly going more in a direction of mono-type teams, and the damage being more in Vegito's edge. The tides pretty much quickly, well, maybe not quickly, turned in Vegito's favor, and he became the best unit in the game. But the debates were heated between Gogeta and Vegito for sure. However, that's AGL Super Vegito at number 3, on to number 2. And at number 2, you got LR Physical Ultimate Gohan, quote-unquote Beast Gohan, and oh boy, maybe biggest Dokkan fumble of all time, making Ultimate Gohan's active skill the only part where you can get Beast Gohan in this card is probably the most questionable design choice of all time in this game's history. That being combined with the fact that he had a pretty, I wouldn't say bad design, but poor design, as he struggled for Ki very hard, but he needed Ki to launch additional attacks and be super effective against all types. Sure, he had LR Gohan's Ki mechanic, where he gets an additional Ki per Ki sphere obtained. He didn't have a way of creating Ki spheres, and his link set was rather wonky, especially with other Saiyans who are prepared for battle Ki link units, whereas Ultimate Gohan is a shocking speed Ki link unit, ultimately leading to him struggling to get the big amounts of Ki that he needs. He wasn't bad, he was pretty good, but his bad design, or rather wonky design, lack of Beast Gohan in this character's kit, besides of course the active skill animation, which was a one-off thing, and plus the active skill didn't do much damage because he doesn't stack attack. It just left a bad taste in players' mouths as they relished about what could have been, especially seeing the unit that released with him, LR Orange Piccolo, who was dominant and amazing on release, and is still to this day a top 10 unit in the game. It is just extremely unfortunate what they did with Ultimate Gohan, quote-unquote Beast. Thankfully, now Dokkan has more than rectified it with LR STR Beast Gohan's release, who is far and away the best unit in the game. He's probably 3 times better than every other unit in the game. But as we waited for a year plus for this dominant unit to be in our box, we had to deal with the cold, empty, hopeless feeling that was this character, LR Physical Ultimate Gohan. He comes in at the number 2 spot. Moving on to number 1. Far and away number 1, it's not even close, in my opinion. The most controversial unit in this game's history, by far, is LR Kale and Caulifla. There are just so many things to say. You had people saying that this unit at 55% was better than every other unit in the game at 100% rainbow, and you could actually not be insulted and ridiculed for an opinion like that. The circumstances just surrounding them, they were literally the perfect unit in the game for every single type of content. They stacked a defense on both their super attack effects. The hardest event in the game, by a good margin, released shortly after they're released. This was, of course, the OG Legendary Goku event. Kale and Caulifla were by far the best unit in the game for it. The Enemy Universe Survival Saga and Pure Saiyan Goku allowed this character to get 2 guaranteed additional super attacks, not to mention their own already baseline super attack and really good chance to get their hidden potential super attack. Plus, they had amazing links, and joined forces essentially was the best team in the game on the release, and that they were just so clearly far and away better than every other unit in the game to anybody with functioning eyes and a brain, it led to people coping and being angry about the fact that AGL, Kale, and Caulifla were the best unit in the game, to which I completely understand the credence to that. LR, Kale, and Cauliflower are probably not deserving to be the best unit in the game, especially for how long they dominated the game. They were the best unit in the game as a yellow coin LR for 9 months, maybe 10. It's just insane how good they were for so long. They built up dodge chance so they couldn't be hit. They built up their attack and defense to be really impressive. They did some of the best damage in the game. They had literally the best defense in the game. They were quite literally just perfect in every way. Copers tried to argue units like Gohan and Goten, the Super Saiyan 4s, all these other units to be on Kale and Caulifla's level when they simply just were not. They were just on a different tier from the rest of the game entirely. I mean, if you were just playing the game when this was going on, you know there were Twitter mega threads about this going back and forth. People being mad that they were so good. People blaming other people for contributing to how well this unit was perceived. To me, they're clearly far and away the most controversial units in this game's history. And it's not close. I've been playing this game since the 3rd anniversary on Global, and I truly have not seen anything this bad. It was just a crazy, crazy time to be playing Dokkan. Thank God when the Blue Fusions came in and took over as the best units in the game. The 50th anniversary Blue Fusion, man. But that's gonna do it for this list. Let me know what you guys think. Was anybody snubbed off this list? Do you think a certain unit is too high or too low? Be sure to let me know. But that's gonna do it for me. Thanks for stopping by.
It's over. Never hurt anyone ever again. You fool!